We had several pullbacks. We had a number of corrections during the 4 years that Biden was in office. And of course, these same people, what's a stock market? Never heard of it. I mean, they're never paying attention during that point, but they are now very sensitive to it now that Trump's back in office. And as I've said before, there's going to be an adjustment period. You know, the honeymoon period came and went. The adjustment period is now the market's trying to figure out what's going to happen with tariffs and whatnot. And just as I think it was in the first term, Trump uses these things to get other countries to capitulate to what he wants to get. And then the tariffs don't typically happen. Renegade Online. And this is another great Scott Jennings moment from television this week. And this hits on something, obviously, that's very near and dear to me as a 20-year professional in the financial industry. And everybody out there right now is talking about, oh, my God, Trump is blowing everything up. He's crashing the stock market and all this other kind of stuff. And I've been telling people we get pullbacks of 5 to 10% on average 3 times a year. And probably in the last 4 to 5 years, we've had 3 of them that happened around the first quarter. This is nothing new. So Scott Jennings apparently got fed up with this the other day on CNN.
Corrections are not unusual. I mean, during the bull market from 2009 to 2020, I think we even had 5 corrections during that period. We tend to have them every couple of years. It's not unusual. They tend to be cyclical. There are other signs, I think, in the economy that are helping real people. Wholesale inflation is down. Consumer inflation is down. Gas prices are decreasing. Mortgage rates coming down. Egg prices are $4.89 today. They were $6.55 on January 21st. We've seen manufacturing jobs in the last jobs report go up. Private investment announcements are going up. And a whole bunch of nutty climate regulations have been eviscerated by this administration. So the stock market is one measurement. It's not unusual for corrections to occur, but there's a whole bunch of green shoots that I think we could look to and say, maybe there's some optimism to be had. He is articulating some parts of the strategy, and it all revolves around more manufacturing in the United States. He believes strongly in the tariffs as a stimulant to American manufacturing. By the way, he is building ships. I heard you mention that. They've got a shipbuilding strategy, too. But they strongly believe that they're going to encourage people to bring back investment. And they've had a number of huge investment announcements of manufacturing in a number of different sectors. That's their view. Now, does it all happen overnight? No. And I don't think anyone should be hysterical over the stock market on 1 day or 6 weeks. Corrections occur, and then the markets, move around. But this idea of trying to stimulate more manufacturing in the United States, that's the plan.
I'm all for that.
And he thinks it will work.
So just real quick, he mentions corrections, and I said pullbacks. I just want everybody to, there is a difference. Pullbacks usually about 5 to 10%. A correction is anywhere from 10 to 20%. A bear market would be over 20%. Those being the most rare of the occurrences, although they are also cyclical. So anyway, there's been a lot of this point about, oh no, it's so bad. Trump is crashing everything. Well, we had several pullbacks. We had a number of corrections during the 4 years that Biden was in office. And of course, these same people, what's a stock market? Never heard of it. I mean, they're never paying attention during that point, but they are now very sensitive to it now that Trump's back in office. And as I've said before, there's going to be an adjustment period. The honeymoon period came and went. The adjustment period is now the market's trying to figure out what's going to happen with tariffs and whatnot. And just as I think it was, in the first term, Trump uses these things to get other countries to capitulate to what he wants to get. And then the tariffs don't typically happen in the same fashion that he originally intended. Just get people to a negotiating table. But as far as the market's concerned, Mark, I don't know if you've kind of done polling on this so far, anything of this. Yeah, that's why I wanted to kind of have you talk about this. So what are you hearing as America's most accurate pollster?
Nice and honest. What I will say is that they're trying to do a psychological operation. First off, and we don't have to get into it, but there are going to be criminal charges. There are people going to be held criminally accountable. I think people at Act Blue are sweating bullets right now. There's a lot of people affiliated with that probably. So it's coming. And I think that they're going to push with every tool they have to try and prevent the Trump agenda. And that means continuing the psychological operations. And you see it this week. So I will say Trump came in with a lower job approval rating than any other president, and maybe a point or two behind Biden. Like, not a lot, but he got more votes than any Republican in history. So when people say that, well, no, it's because everybody's completely like bugged out and lied to and gaslit and on the brink of civil war. But what has happened is it's basically settled into about a 52% job approval rating. Came in at like 56, went down to 52, and it's been staying there. Maybe I'll see 50 or 51 tomorrow, but Trump has pretty much earned half the country's support. But what's happening right now is the media is trying to paint this fake narrative of his collapse. And they're doing it because of the stock market and other things. And it got so bad that Quinnipiac put a poll out there that had Trump underwater 11 points. Like, and I'm +5 right now. So Quinnipiac's 16 points to the left of me. But what's funny is everybody ran with that poll.
Right.
Like,
but let me ask you, what do you think is it? I know we talked about this during the election season late last year, and it just goes to show that the media is going to pick and choose, whether it's Disney that runs ABC or Comcast that has MSNBC, which they're trying to get rid of right now, of course, along with some other cable assets, or any of these big Hollywood companies that own the major media networks. What is the difference really? I mean, how are these polls so far apart? Why are they picking them versus you think?
Well, what we're seeing is fewer and fewer. A lot of people are dropping out of the industry now, kind of like flies. And right now, when in the fall, there were a whole bunch of people out on the left bookend, so to speak, there's only 2 or 3 out there. It's like CNN's SRS, Quinnipiac are the worst ones. And they literally cherry picked the worst poll for Trump. Even Fox News. Fox News ran with a Quinnipiac number. It's really insane. I do think that Quinnipiac just sucks. Like, they're just really bad. And maybe it's corruption. It's hard for me to point that finger. It would be easy for them to do that. But here's how you know they're so bad at their jobs is that Trump was underwater 3 points on the issue of immigration in that poll. Like, I'd probably have him up 15 if I polled that right now, because he has literally shut the border. And so whoever they're polling, it's not Americans. And
Mark, any chance that those polls were put out in an effort to encourage Chuck Schumer to make a particular position on the CR? Is that how?
Have you been reading my Twitter feed? Yes, Pro.
I'm just throwing it out there to you.
Here's the timeline. On Wednesday morning, I said, you know what? I think they're going to try. I was looking at Real Clear Politics aggregate, and it was like net Trump plus 0.2. So he had a positive approval rating on the Real Clear Politics, but not by much. And I said, between now and Friday, somebody's going to drop a -10 poll to flip the Real Clear Politics aggregate so they could talk about Trump's bad approval all weekend. And it was literally like 18 hours later, Quinnipiac came out with this -11. So at the time, Chuck Schumer was out there talking tough about how everybody needed to vote against the continuing resolution. And then this Quinnipiac poll dropped, and in the polls, they had questions that showed that Americans were going to blame Republicans for the shutdown. And by the time that had come out, Schumer had already flip-flopped. So it's the most hilarious thing in the world. They literally ran political cover for the Democrats to try and, prevent the Republican from getting their way. And he caved so soon, like they couldn't even get the political cover out. Like, that's why the poll was run. You're 100% right.
We've got to get Rasmussen polling soon on if the American public supports AOC primarying Chuck Schumer. That's what we need to know.
Yeah, it's probably a little too soon for the matchups, but I just saw that she led a poll for name recognition among who is the leader of the Democrat Party. Now, it was only 10%, but I'm telling you, she is a contender. She really is. Right now, in my opinion, it's Gavin Newsom and AOC going 2 very different tactics. And it's going to define what happens to the Democrat Party, because AOC is sort of doubling down on loony communism, eat the rich stuff. And Gavin Newsom interviewed Steve Bannon. That's like, Google won't even let me put an interview with Steve Bannon on YouTube.
He's trying to moderate. He's trying to get his appearance of moving to the center, which is what a lot of these folks do before they put themselves in a position to go run. So that kind of doesn't surprise me in the least. Like, Mark, speaking of polling, you and I will have to have a talk, and maybe we'll see what happens with this Disney earnings call. But I know, or the annual shareholder meeting, and I know you and I kind of talked a few weeks ago about this. But I'm going to have to get you to. We're going to have to talk about doing a poll about American Hollywood culture and audience reactions to things. It might be fun to to kind of look and see what we can do there, because I think that would be pretty revealing.
Valiant, you're gonna have to pay for it. Good try. You want Rasmussen to run a poll for you? You're gonna have to commission it, man.
Oh, I know.
I would always give people friends and family pricing here, but if we come up with 2 or 3 good questions, I'll just stick them into the nightly rotation. Or if you don't want to do a standalone, for sure. But we're definitely going to be doing more interesting polling. I was talking to.
What does America think of me, Mark?
What's that?
What does America think of me?
Oh yeah, sure. I'll put it in there.
Coleman.
Sure, Ron Coleman. I love you, Ron, and you're very well known, but you're going to get like a 45% not sure. Like that's just the way it works, right? Anybody who's not
only 45%.
A
lot of people are just going to say somewhat. Oh, I somewhat like that person.
My favorite bodybuilder is what they're going to say.
My favorite bodybuilder.
Yeah, that's who comes up every time you search.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.